Hello and welcome to Boomer Live. Of course, we are back with the football podcast. Now, with me, a very special fan. He's going to be rooting for Dortmund in the Del Klassiker, which is going to take place day after tomorrow. And of course, he's going to be talking about his love for Dortmund, Dortmund's chance of getting their hands on Bundesliga after 1 decade. It's going to be very, very interesting because I have with me Mo Fahmi with me. Fahmi, great to see you, man. It's been a long time, and I know your love for Dortmund has been forever. How are you doing? Let's get started with
All
that.
good, man. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, just pumped up for the Klassiker we have tomorrow.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty excited for this because now you guys are leading on the table, right? Of course, you have that advantage going into this. Did you ever imagine at the start of the season you will be on this position? Because Bayern Munich, though they've had a good season in the Europe, but if you talk about the Bundesliga, they've had some big hiccups. Now, new manager Tuchel. How do you see the season?
The season had a lot of ups and turns, downs. We had a lot of turns up and down. It went, and especially the way we started the season. Like if you see the Dortmund right before the season started, like we had Marco Rossi as our manager. I was kind of surprised when they sacked him, and then we had Edin
Yeah,
Terzic being appointed. I mean, I was surprised, not sad, not happy, but just surprised. And then we had
yeah,
all the new signings like Zule, Schlotterbeck, Adiemi, Brandt. Sorry, not Brandt. Who else we signed? Ozjan. Yeah, all these
Ozil,
players
yeah,
we signed, and then okay, I was kind of like optimistic, but we didn't see that performance up to the mark. We had a very bad bottling against Werder Bremen, and
yeah.
then we did not win against Cologne, and so all these kind of performance kept it made me skeptical that we could win the league this season.
Right.
But then, ever since the turn of the World Cup went by, the team has just went winning 10 games straight streak win, and then we lose to Chelsea and draw to Schalke. But again, they're
Yeah,
showing great resilience, and I'm just kind of like surprised that they picked up their wavelength. And meanwhile, on the other side, for Bayern, they have been okay. They drew a lot of games. They lost to Gladbach, which they usually do. And with the appointment of Thomas Tuchel right now, I think Thomas Tuchel is a great, clever mastermind when it comes to tactics, and he can do a lot of great things. And I was like kind of like, pessimistic when I saw Tuchel get in, but then I'm like, no problem. But looking at how
yeah.
stable the Dortmund team has been, there's still hope that we can win the Klassiker.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
it's very interesting that you mentioned that because now let's talk about your manager, Edin Terzic, because he's done a phenomenal job since he has taken over Dortmund. I mean, let's talk about tactics, the tactics of deploying 4-1-4-1. A lot of people were skeptical in the Bayern camp. You can say a lot of fan clubs did come out criticizing that tactic, but the kind of pressure you've been able to maintain. Let's talk about Emre Can in this system. How vital has he used him? Because this new manager has really seen Emre Can as the focal point in your entire system, isn't he?
Absolutely. So this is what, see, ever since Emre Can joined Dortmund, that was back in 2020 January. He came from
Yeah,
Juventus on loan. So we did see a kind of like change of play because the attitude he holds, the frame that he holds, the way he encouraged Dortmund players to start playing dirty with challenges, it
yeah,
was really nice to see. But then, okay, down the time, he were making a lot of sloppy errors, especially that led to goals against the 2021 season we played against Man City in the quarterfinals. Like we saw him do
yeah,
mistakes. And even against the Werder Bremen bottling game that happened this season, we saw him make mistakes. But it just didn't stop him. And right now, he's the most vital character in the entire game which Dortmund plays. He dictates the entire game technically. And talking about Edin Terzic, it's the second time he's in charge of Dortmund. The first time was when Lucien Favre got sacked in 2019, and then Edin
yeah.
Terzic as the interim coach. He did
Right.
great job back then. He had Jadon Sancho and Erling Haaland, and he won the DFB Cup, thrashing Leipzig in the final 4-1,
Yeah,
and he did a pretty
yeah.
good job. And we have our faith in him for a long time. So yeah, he's like the Dortmunder guy. So we have all our faith in him.
I mean, that's very interesting that you mentioned that because this guy is definitely given that fan club all across the world that hope that they can go on to win the Bundesliga. But let's talk about another player, isn't it? Because already there, all the clubs are eyeing for him across the world. It's none than Jude Bellingham. I mean, what a season he's had. I mean, of course, when you talk about Jude Bellingham, I mean, there's one thing which he always brings into the table. It's that exuberance in the midfield, that class he's got. I mean, in the World Cup also you saw that the world got to see what he's made up of. Now Manchester City are behind him, Real Madrid are behind him, Liverpool are behind him. Do you reckon that the motivation is still there for Bellingham to win something for Dortmund, or is he already looking at the future at some other club now?
I don't think. I mean, this is what I really respect about Bellingham compared to, see, in the last 2 seasons, we had two of our best players, Erling Haaland and Jadon Sancho,
Yeah,
leave us,
yeah.
like one season after the other. And so I'm expecting him to leave by the end of the season, and it would be a good fortune for Dortmund. But if you look at this season right now, the way he's been playing, the way he's been carrying the team, like the passion he has, the enthusiasm he puts into every single tackle he does is really like beautiful to see. And I'm quite surprised that at the age of 19, he has been captaining Dortmund in the Chelsea game. I mean, who does that, right?
I mean, yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, like a team like Dortmund, he did in Champions League was just captaining the entire team. And I was
Yeah,
like, I mean, that's just because of his maturity. So, he on the pitch, he delivers, off the
mm,
pitch, he delivers, and he's just a complete box to box player, you know?
absolutely. I mean, that's one angle about him, but let's talk about the way in which he's carried the leadership acumen in the midfield, right? There were occasions where you feel like, okay, there's a huge hole in the Dortmund's midfield, but then he's really stepped up. Talk about him drifting on the left hand side, going in the center, giving that cover to Emre and if need be, dropping in deep. Now, that maturity at the age of 19, do you reckon any other midfielder has it in the world? Now, you talk about Pedri, you talk about Gavi out there in the other parts of Europe, or even Jamal Musiala. But this lad has got something about him, especially as a leader, which a lot of these youngsters do not have at that age.
Right. So yeah, I mean, you see, if you see, for example, Jamal Musiala, it's his childhood friend as well, and I
Yeah,
see him like as an equal equivalent of Jude Bellingham, but he's just playing for Bayern Munich. And
yeah,
yes, Jamal Musiala has like, okay, if you see the qualities, they are like completely different. Jamal Musiala is more like he dribbles very well. That's what I
yeah.
noticed. Well, Jude Bellingham is a player who completely plays more physical challenges and stuff like that. So apart from these two guys, I would also like to talk about Gavi from Barcelona, the kind of hunter he is, like the way he plays with that hunting mentality. Like if the player gets past him, he would still go and
Yeah,
hunt him down,
yeah.
make a clean challenge or something. So these kind of like this is what I like about the next generation of football players. They're just really hungry for their game, and they just deliver. Like players like Gavi, Pedri, Musiala, Bellingham, and who else? Who are included in that? But
I
this
think
is
you
what.
can add Pedri. Then you can maybe even bring to an extent. I think Phil Foden is right up there. I mean, he's also
Oh,
pretty. He's definitely 1 year, a couple of years elder than them, but it's the similar mold, right? All these
yeah,
guys have got the mentality in them.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's very interesting because there's already a question on, let's talk about Marco Royce's form, because man, this guy's always been there, right? He's been your captain, club captain. You've seen the ups and downs with this guy. We've always set a bar. Marco Royce is finally going to get his hands on that Bundesliga for so long as well. He has seen the greatest of times with Bayern. He's seen the lowest. He's someone who's stuck with this club. Now, this season, all of a sudden, there is this all of a sudden peak of form for Marco Royce, which has certainly helped the club. Now, his leadership acumen, how much has it benefited Dortmund now, especially going into this game as well?
See, I would say like, see, Marco Reus is the most influential player in the Dortmund squad alongside Mats Hummels because they are like the oldest players, right?
Right.
And they have seen Dortmund from the like they're almost there for a decade, and so like this is what I would say. The unique thing about Royce is like his technique. Like he's never changed it, and he's always been successful. Technically, if you see in terms of goals and assists, his best season in Dortmund has been 18-19, where he scored,
Yeah.
and he was also the German Player of the Year at that time.
Yeah.
But right now, like if when he picks up his wavelength again, he's just unstoppable. And the way he commands in the field, like I mean, we could call him like an assist, like we could call him like a manager, but he's playing on the field, right? The way he
Yeah.
commands, the way he
Yeah.
tells players, and okay, he's not only
You can
contributing.
even possibly take him to talk about him as a true club captain. Not a lot of you don't see that often in football, right? A captain commanding that kind of responsibility on the field, telling his teammates, really directing them on the field. Usually, you see that expressions from the manager on the sidelines, but now you see a player in the field with that experience, what he's bringing into this youthful team.
Exactly. So that's one thing I'm really happy about. But there's another thing that make me happy about him. He just doesn't contribute in the attacking, but he also contributes defensively.
Yeah.
He runs back, he tackles, and he wins the ball, or he does blocking or interceptions, and he's really good at anticipating. So this is
Mm.
something that I've been noticing from Marco Reus from quite a long time, and he has always been the fan favorite for Dortmund fans. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that is for sure. I mean, there is no denying the fact that, Borussia Dortmund's identity in the recent past is always about how Marco Reus has carried himself on the field. He's been slightly unlucky, you can say, when it comes to his national team, but for sure. He certainly deserves a trophy now. Of course, with the Bundesliga trophy as well. But now let's shift focus on another player. I mean, you saw a lot has happened with him the start of the season with Sebastian Haller. Coming into Dortmund's team, a lot of skepticism was there on Sebastian Haller. They signed him as a replacement for Haaland, you can say, a striker coming from Ajax. Phenomenal season last time around with Ajax. But come Dortmund, all of a sudden he gets tested due to medical reasons and he was pushed out of the squad. Now he's back in the team. Last match against Cologne, he put up a man of the match performance, scoring a brace. Now heading into this game as well, who do you see him start, or do you see Adeyemi or Mokoko start? Because when you talk about pace, there was Adeyemi and Mokoko, but when you talk about that experience, dropping in deep as a number nine, helping the wingers get into position, and and that pressure as well, which Sebastian Haller has been applying on the defenders in the recent past, has been phenomenal, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, see, this is what I would say. Like, see, we won our last game we played against Cologne and we won 6-1. Aller had a brace. But if you see the last goal that we scored that was done by Marco Reus, Aller had a lot of participation in that because
Yeah,
he received a long ball and he chested and he held the defender of the other team and gave the ball to Malen, who assisted Royce for the goal. So I'm seeing not this one time, but I see this multiple times where he's very good at holding up and helping wingers get into the position, like Ariemi and Brandt or Royce or
yeah,
Bellingham, whoever they are. And
yeah,
that's why I see him start certainly. And game by game, he's able to increase the time he can play. Initially, he used to play for one half, then he played for 60 minutes. Now he's able to play 70 minutes. And in this international break, he was able to score a goal for his country national team, Ivory Coast.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, of course, it was emotionally happy for us when we saw him score his first goal on World Cancer Day. And then ever
yeah.
since then, we don't keep a lot of expectations on him because he's not completely fit. But yeah, we would like to see him as long as he is contributing either by assist or by goals or however way he can. Any positive thing he can do, we are always happy as a Dortmund fan.
That's true as well. So I think that is one factor to it. I still don't understand. I mean, that's a question. I think we all just have it as well. How has Dortmund been able to produce so many youngsters? Let's talk about it. Is it within the club to just buy this youngster out of nowhere and make them into global giants? The list just goes on. From let's talk about from 2010s to now. You produce so many world talents and you've been selling them off. Is it time the Dortmund really stops selling them off and makes them their own? I know, Dortmund is able to earn a lot of money, but is that the mentality within the club just to make them better players? Just buy this unknown commodity and make them into world beaters?
Yeah, I mean, see, to the point, see, this was the season we had our sporting director change, and right now we have the club legend Sebastian Kell in
Yeah,
that position, and earlier it was Michael Zorc. He was also club legend,
yeah,
and they did their job pretty good.
yeah.
They bought up the talents that were like who were they? Usman Dembele, Jadon Sancho. They got Erling Haaland and developed him. And then who else? We had a lot of people. Julian Weigel. Okay, Weigel
Yeah,
wasn't
you can
as
talk about
fit.
Gio Reyna as well. Christian Pulisic
Yeah,
was there.
so yeah, Christian Pulisic, and so yeah, we did have a lot of strong players in our past, and then we just sold our best players to different clubs, and few of them have come back. Like for example, Godze have come back, Mats Hummels have come back. So yeah. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is like right now we have Sebastian Kell, and it looks like he's trying to cook something else, right? Because if you see the players like Ariemi is a Dortmund fan.
Yeah,
And if you see the way how new players like Nico Schlotterbeck, the reason
yeah,
why he's fan favorite right from his first season in Dortmund is you just see him play. Like he celebrates every tackle like he scored a goal. And
yeah.
it just
I've seen
makes
that.
us fans happy when we see him, behave in such attitude on the pitch for
Yeah,
us and the way he blushes when he sees the yellow wall roaring. So, yeah, I see the next generation of players like Schlotterbeck or Marius Wolf, the right back,
yeah,
or Julian Brandt. Like they're really patient and they always looks like if they're taken care of, like they're given the right contracts, then I think I see them for a long period of time in the club.
yeah. I mean, I really want to ask that question to you as well. You reckon this was a season where you could have had a deep run in Europe as well because there was an opportunity. Chelsea was on the mat. First leg, you dominated them. It was, you can say it was an even game. Chelsea also had their fair bit of chance, but getting that lead to Stamford Bridge and maybe losing it out. You talk about that controversial penalty as well, where Havertz got to score that twice. It could have gone either way if that was not there. But let's talk about that, right? Are you slightly disappointed with their performance? Because now, if you talk, you would have, if you would have been in the other end of the spectrum, or if you would have got the other side of draws, if you were playing Benfica or Inter Milan, you could have possibly gone to semi-final or even final. Long run after 2013.
Absolutely. I'm disappointed. If you ask me, are you disappointed? I would say yes and no. Yes, because we were robbed, and this has happened many times. Like important games where it can decide like what sort of season we would have, and we were completely robbed by some sort of errors. I've seen now. You see, like in the Chelsea game, the first leg, we could have had many goals, right? We could have, like, Brandt had a good chance to score. Aller had a good chance to score in the first half. Okay, finally, Ariemi scores a beautiful goal. And
Yeah,
then props to Gregor Kobel for doing all the saves and Emre Can for doing online clearance. But in the second leg, yes, we lost Brandt in the third minute. That was a huge L for Dortmund. Seeing your best player go away on the third minute after an injury was a big L. And after that, okay, Sterling's goal was good. Havertz's goal was really controversial. And ever since that, they just didn't pick up the form. So I don't want to put the blame entirely on referees' mistakes or
yeah,
external factor. Yeah, for like Dortmund wasn't creative that day. They weren't creative. So a part of blame also goes to the fact that they weren't creative and they should have made better chances. Now, why I'm not disappointed? It's because, well, if we won against Chelsea, I think Chelsea's playing Real Madrid. We would have played Real Madrid in place of Chelsea right now. And we would have to put focus into league and Champions League. And right
yeah.
now, it's time for us to focus on to Bundesliga to win the Meisterschale after like 10 or 11 years. So it's good blessing in disguise that we lost so that we can put our entire focus, because the week we have right now is first tomorrow against Bayern, then midweek against Leipzig away, and
Yeah.
then next weekend we have a home game against Union Berlin. These are like the top tier
I mean,
teams in
these are
Bundesliga.
tough games, right? You're talking about two of the top three. You're going to be facing them in the next week. How important is it? Because Leipzig's all of a sudden showing a bit of form. I know they had a hammering against Manchester City, but Leipzig is always a tough opposition to play, especially going away, and it's a quarterfinal, isn't it? So, how tough is it going to be for this team? Are you really going to be putting a focus on the FA Pokal or complete focus on Bundesliga? As a fan, what would you expect? Go for the double or go for Bundesliga?
Of course, go for the domestic double, and I believe we can do it because the way we played Leipzig the last, I think it was 3 weeks or 1 month ago,
Yeah,
we played them in the home. We completely dominated them in the first half. Well, second half was a different story, but if we continue that same performance even in their home stadium, I believe we can get a positive result and go ahead. Yeah, I would love to see domestic double. Nevertheless, Bundesliga is, of course, the most important thing right now for us.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people are also tired, right? To say Bayern Munich dominate for such a long time. I know, as a fan, as a Dortmund fan, of course, you want to see that, but as a football fan, you like to see different stories, and that's one of the reasons why Bundesliga gets this jibe of Farmers League and one team completely dominating. But now, do you reckon there's any better time to play Bayern than now? Tuchel, a new manager, first game of him in charge, such a big occasion for him, playing. I know, of course, it's a tough place to play, but then you talk about this game where you're going to be having your complete score. But at the same time, Bayern is definitely going to take a little bit of time, you can say, for all the players to gel into a new system. Nagelsmann had a different theory: play direct football, maintain high press. But you never know what system Tuchel is going to deploy. People are saying it could be five at the back or maybe three at the back with maybe go in with Delict and Upamecano as well, or Pavard as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. In fact, I mean, see, when Tuchel served 2 years in Dortmund, he used to try deploy different systems. And one thing about Thomas Tuchel is he's really unpredictable. So, and he's very good at deploying systems with the right formations. He used to try four. He was the first one who tried 4-1-4-1 with Dortmund squad
Yeah.
back in 2016, and we used to have Julian Weigel as our holding midfielder. Back then, he was pretty successful with that system, and he knows how to rotate the squad very well. So this is a very good, important quality of Tuchel, and he got great players with him. He got Cancelo, he got Gnabry, Mane, Zane, lot of players. He has options. So but here's the thing. I mean, it's not definite to us as how long the players would take time to adapt to a new system of play when it was really unexpected for the players to see Nagelsmann leave. And yeah, so let's see how it goes. I have no words. I mean, I just saw the recent update from Dortmund side in the interview latest by Rinterzic, where he said Brandt, Adiemi, and Kobel are back.
Yeah,
Nico Slotterbeck would be doubtful, but we would see after the final training, he might come or he might not come. Same thing with Jamie Bino-Gittens.
yeah.
But he was also saying that he was studying how Tuchel played in his previous games when in Chelsea and stuff like that, and let's see how they play. It's really unpredictable, but I am have hoping for a
Are
positive.
you gonna be? Is it gonna be like? Are you gonna lose any love for Thomas Tuchel because he's loved by a lot of these Dortmund fans over the years now? It is like you can say ex returning back, but in a different form with your rival. Now that's a very weird feeling, isn't it? To see Thomas Tuchel, manager of Bayern Munich, the arch rivals of Dortmund, all of a sudden things look so different for Dortmund. But at the same time, how do you perceive this? How
Well,
happy were you, or how angry were you when you saw that announcement?
I mean, there wasn't any emotions involved because we've been through this situation already once back in
I know,
2020 with
yeah,
PSG. He was the coach, and then we won PSG in the first leg 2-1, and then we lose 2-0 in the second leg, just like what happened to Chelsea. So yes, that was the time I was kind of disappointed, and this time I'm like, cool, we're just gonna do the same thing again, and it's just like I wish like the team gave a fitting answer to Bayern Munich this time. See, I think the game against Bayern Munich wouldn't be a title decider because if Dortmund wins, they would only have a 4 point lead and still 8 matches to go. And if Bayern wins, it would still be a 1 point lead, and
but
then still there
let's
would be
talk about that 2 points lead. If Bayern wins tomorrow, I think it's a 1 point difference at this point. If Bayern wins, they get two
right
points
two
ahead.
point lead. Yeah,
So
two point
that
lead.
2 points can be massive, especially if you're talking about Bayern, because Bayern can go on a streak. We've seen that with Bayern time and time again, how even 1 point can make a lot of difference with that team because they can go on a run and they don't draw points. But at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, Dortmund can have that struggle because you're talking about tough games ahead, right? You're going to be playing on the Pokal, you're going to be playing Union Berlin a week later. So these are tough fixtures. But Bayern has been here for the last 10 years. They'll feel like we've been here and done that previously.
Yeah, so when it comes to the mentality, that's the where because Dortmund, I would say in the recent years, like the closest we got to winning a Bundesliga title recently was in 2019, and we lost the title by 2 points. Where by the winter break we were having a lead of 9 points, and we just bottled them entirely in the
Yeah,
second half of the season. So that's what I would say. Like if Dortmund was given pressure, then they have always crumbled, and it's kind of disappointing to see that.
yeah,
Um, this season, let's say even if there was pressure, the team has handled it positively. If you see the games against Hoffenheim, we were playing away. If you see the game against Werder Bremen, we were playing away. The team was attacking, but the defense maintained that 1-0, 2-0 lead, and they made sure they got a clean sheet by the end of the final whistle. So I sort of like the other mentionable game that I would like to say is against Manchester City in
yeah,
our home, like where
yeah,
we drew 0-0 and we saved a penalty from Mahrez.
yeah.
So if you see the entire way the defense have structured, I was pretty happy and like surprised to see that Dortmund performed like this, which I've never seen in the last 9 years of supporting them. So yeah, I mean, to a point, yeah, we used to crack under pressure, but let's see how it goes again tomorrow. Like, yeah, tomorrow's game, like you said, I do agree with you. Like, if it's a win for Bayern, then it's easy for them to win the next 8 games and just lift their next Meisterschale. And if Dortmund wins, I wouldn't still say 100% we are winning the Bundesliga, but it's still like okay, a high chance. So
Yeah.
yeah, although
I mean,
we have hard games against Union Berlin, Eintracht Frankfurt, Wolfsburg, and Gladbach.
yeah.
The good thing is we are having all these 4 games which are tough in our home.
I mean, that's
So
going to be very important. Get those home wins in front of the yellow wall. I think there's nothing better in the world than that. If they can win the title in front of the yellow wall as well, I think that's going to be crazy scenes. I bet you would be want to be there as well. But I've got a couple of questions here, especially regarding Aubameyang. Of course, he's now in a tricky position with Chelsea. He wants to come back to Barcelona as well. You reckon there's a chance for Dortmund to try him out? I know that you have enough players to be playing in that position at this point with Adeyemi, Mokoku, and Haller. But you reckon maybe on the right hand side to get Aubameyang back?
well, Aubameyang was a great striker, and he did bag in a lot of goals, especially in that 16-17 season where he won the Tor Jagerkonnen, the prize for the
Yeah,
top scorer of Bundesliga. And yes, but I think with the current set of play, he still would be useful with the pace of Daniel Malen and Adiemi. He would still
yeah,
fit into the mid position, but I think the kind of age he has passed to, we would be still happy with Sebastian Aller or Yusufa Mukoku as well. Mukoku has been great in the first half of the season. We've been happy with his form, and he has
yeah,
stepped up. He was the youngest goal scorer in Revier Derby and Klassiker. He broke the records.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would like to see how the next generation plays for us.
Interesting, because mentioned about the last Klassiker. Do you want that emotions to be repeated again? It was such an intense game. It went down the wire, and it was the equalizer. How much do you reckon that game is going to give the Dortmund team the confidence? Because they'll believe they will not lose this game, taking confidence from the last fixtures in it.
I mean, see, I would say we could have won that game because in the 84th minute, Anthony Modest had an easy chance to tap in and he just missed it, right?
Yeah,
So if we would have scored that and then the last minute header, it would have been like a 3-2. So nevertheless, I'm still happy with the draw because we've been losing to Bayern every single season. We like season in, season out, we've been losing to Bayern. So at least we broke that record where Edin Terzic helped us get a draw. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, the emotion, it was completely overwhelmed of emotions, especially seeing Anthony Modest score in the last
yeah.
minute. It was just crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the most memorable game of the season for us here so far.
Had to be. It was one crazy great game as well. Another question is: are Bayern Munich really under pressure? Because we did talk about it, but now let's talk about the pressure of Bayern Munich as well. I know they've got crazy bench strength, but you did mention about being competitive in the Champions League as well. In a week's
Oh, yes.
time, they go to Etihad to play Manchester City there. So it is not going to be easy for them. They have to play three hard fixtures. We didn't mention about Dortmund's hard fixtures, but for Bayern Munich, it's even harder. For Thomas Tuchel, he'll have a point to prove now. Bayern Munich's management, there's definitely been a tussle between Nagelsmann and Bayern Munich's management. That's one of the reasons why he got ousted out of the team. But now Bayern Munich's management will have the backing of Thomas Tuchel, but at the same time, Thomas Tuchel will have a point to prove. He's again appointed in a very tricky position, like he took over Chelsea in 2021. You reckon there's a pressure is on Bayern Munich at this point of stage at least?
I think they've fairly done a very, very good job in Champions League. The only team they conceded a goal was against Victoria Pleasant, and
Yeah,
they have managed to keep clean sheets against Barcelona, Inter Milan, and even PSG in both legs. And it's
yeah,
pretty good. Like it's nice to see when Upamecano and Delict click together. They are just really nice. They have this great goalkeeper Jan Sommer as well.
yeah,
I'm a huge personal fan of Jan Sommer, the Swiss goalkeeper. And yeah, they've been doing pretty good. Just like Dortmund is having next three fixtures as really hard. Even Bayern Munich, they have to play Dortmund, they have to play Man City, they have to play Freiburg, and then again Man City, the return leg. So they're
yeah,
having a hard job as well. I wish all the best for their Champions League fixtures. I would like to see them go far. I mean, like we are going to have an interesting semi-finals as well. If Bayern wins against Man City and Real Madrid wins against Chelsea, we would have an amazing semi-finals in Bayern Champions League. Like two of the
yeah.
elite clubs are just playing against each other, so it would be really a treat for football fans to watch it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the last time you did see as well, Bayern Munich did come in, but they just went on. They had the screws off. In 2020, they had a crazy season. I know it was all one leg ties, but that season, you have to say, winning the treble was one insane season from Bayern Munich. They won it all. Lewandowski on top of his form. But later now, do you reckon one of the biggest weakness of Bayern Munich is going to be having the strike? I know Eric Choupo-Moting has had a phenomenal season, but somewhere down the line, against some top quality oppositions, you reckon the number nine not being there, that prominent number nine presence like Lewandowski not being there, has really affected them to a certain extent?
Yes, I would say it certainly affected them. If you see in Der Klassiker, Lewandowski has scored around 26 or 28 goals against Dortmund, just against Dortmund. And the
Yeah,
reason why, if you see Bayern had winning, like I still remember in 2021 in Allianz, empty doors stadiums, and we were leading 2-0 the first 10 minutes by a brace from Erling Haaland. But the final score was 4-2, where Lewandowski scored a hat trick.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
come back. So if you see, Lewandowski has been very, very influential for Bayern Munich's success in the last recent years, ever since he have joined them in 2014. And right now, if you see even the Der Klassiker, the last match that happened 2-2, the goals were scored by Goretzka and Leroy Sané. I mean, they didn't have a number nine to score that, and that was one weak point which Dortmund really exploited and kept the defense really, like they like it was hard. Like the both goals the
yeah,
Bayern Munich scored were outside the box. They couldn't get inside the box if you
absolutely.
noticed.
Yeah.
So I think not having a number nine was really like has affected them, and let's see how they can keep up the challenge.
I mean, you
Of
didn't
course,
mention Lewandowski, but another player who really has had an influence on most of their Klassiker is Muller. And you reckon he's going to start tomorrow? In the recent past, he's not got the nod ahead, but someone like a Thomas Tuchel really likes these kind of players. He likes someone like a Mason Mount, a number 10 who can really control the game in the middle of the park. I know there's a Jamal Musiala, but there are chances that Jamal Musiala be on the left-hand side for tomorrow and maybe Muller on the center of the pitch. You reckon he's going to be getting the nod ahead for tomorrow's clash?
We'll have to see. Actually haven't seen a lot of recent games in Bayern, but having Thomas Müller against Dortmund is really vital for them because on big games, like how Royce has been to Dortmund, I would say Müller has been for Bayern Munich. Like he has been able to give them the advices. Like, see, for example, Jamal is young and Thomas is like. If you see both of them playing, it's just like quality plus experience. And if Bayern has to do that way, I would see him. I mean, I would like to see him on the pitch tomorrow, like for a very strong game between both teams. And the end, I would like to just say where the best team wins. So yeah.
Absolutely. I know it was fantastic to have you on board, Fami. I mean, we've almost covered every single thing about Dortmund and tomorrow's clash. But finally, what are your predictions before we end this podcast?
I would say a 2-1 for Dortmund as a Dortmund fan.
Yeah,
Um, so, yes, I would still be happy with a draw, in fact, just like
yeah,
we had in the first leg in our stadium. But again, this is Allianz Arena and it's away. It's going to be tough. Bayern is like, although they haven't had good run ever since World Cup, but we all know the quality Bayern has, the depth the squad has, and the manager that they newly appointed. We can never write them off.
yeah.
So, fingers crossed, 2-1 for tomorrow. What about you?
I'm also hoping Dortmund wins this, man. I really want Dortmund to win because I really don't watch Bundesliga a lot, but if I watch, it's just for Dortmund. I've got soft corner for Freiburg and Dortmund. I've enjoyed watching Freiburg in the recent past, and I really wanted Union Berlin to do well as well. I'm glad they've made it. I hope they qualify for Europe for next season. I was very sad when they got knocked out in the Europa League as well, but I really hope it's Dortmund. I want something to change in Bundesliga. Finally, put a mark on say, okay, it's not Bayern's dominance for the last 11 years or 12 years, right? Finally, have a new winner, and maybe in DFB Pokal as well. Last time I was extremely disappointed when Freiburg lost in the final to Leipzig. I was like, oh my god, that was a chance where Freiburg could have really won it because they really wanted a trophy. Amazing club. You know, a lot of people do not watch Bundesliga, but they really have to watch because there's a lot of these kind of stories, right? It's all fan run, a lot of passion involved there, and that's what makes Bundesliga so different. It's not elite anymore. You can say it's more there's more passion which involves in Bundesliga more than Premier League. If I've talked about Super League, I have to say Premier League has become a super league to an extent because of a lot of money inflowing. But whereas in the other end of saying true passion and true talent driving a league, it is Bundesliga. You've seen Eintracht Frankfurt's run last time around the Europa League as well. So I'm excited for tomorrow's clash. I'm really hoping fingers crossed for Dortmund. I'm expecting 1-0 Dortmund. Let's hope they score one and park the bus and just get a result somehow. But it's going to be hard in Alliance Arena. You know, Alliance Arena is such a fortress for Bayern Munich in the recent past and forever now. As a Barca fan as well, I understand how hard it has been for us to go there and get hammered time in and time out. But let's see how it goes. Thank you, Fami. It was pleasure having you on board to talk about it. We'll have you soon, maybe hopefully, if Borussia Dortmund wins that Bundesliga. I think there's no better person to have you once again and talk about that moment as well. Thank you, Fami. It was pleasure.
Right, right. Thank you for having me.